Let's talk about IEDC. We throw it around all the time, IEDC. So we'll slow that down.
Yep.
International Economic Development Council.
Yes.
Yep. It is our industry's governing body, if
That's
you
right.
will, body of authority to talk about who we are and what we do.
That's right.
The largest of its kind, 4,500 members strong.
That's right.
And so when we talk about best practices, when we talk about accreditation
Right.
from an organization like IEDC, they are the standard on what is economic development, and the membership represents some of the best practices all over the world.
That's right.
And so we've talked about what is economic development, what is IEDC. So let's talk a little bit about Roswell Inc. and what does that mean to y'all. We're going to get to the award piece, and that's really important, and we absolutely can't wait to celebrate. But let's talk a little bit about what is Roswell Inc. in the context of economic development, and kind of how did y'all get here today? Because you've been on this journey long before, IEDC accredited you and even is awarding you here in 2025.
Well, I'm excited to have both of you here. Obviously, say that first. Second, I'll say Georgia Power has been a strategic partner in our partnership with the city to create the PPP. The public-private partnership is what a PPP is, right? And Roswell's uniquely positioned, like no other city in the region, with this PPP for economic development. And it came with the need to build business, right? And to try to figure out as a city, where did we want to go? And so a lot of credit goes to the leadership over the years that has stepped up. And most recently, the leadership that has stepped up to support what we're doing from a city side, because the vision has to come from the city. We have to be in alignment with what the city wants and where we're going. And then it gives us our marching orders to get best practices from IEDC of how do we get there? How do we achieve this?
Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Roswell Brew Talks. I am John Asbell. I'm president of the board for Roswell Inc., EDO, Economic Development Organization. I also, in my daytime job, serve as area manager for external affairs for the Metro North region of Georgia Power Company. And today we have flipped the script on you. We have a number of guests today. My co-pilot for today is Brooke Perez.
Hey there.
Manager of Community Development. Hello and welcome.
Thank you.
As we flip the script on Ashley Allen, Vice President of Operations, and our CEO.
Oh, hey, look out.
Of
It's kind of
Roswell.
weird being on this
I
side of
know
the
it
room.
is.
I'm just telling you.
I like it.
It's kind of comfy.
It's a great day. It's
do
a day of
business.
celebration,
Yes.
right? Yeah, big news today. And talking all about it today, learning more about it. The IEDC awards that were recently announced and achieved. While it was a brief moment of celebration and of receiving the awards, they represent a lot of work.
Yes.
Years, if not decades, of commitment and focus and work. And we're looking forward to hearing more about it today, right?
That's right.
Excited.
Talk about
share.
it more today. Cool. All right, with that, well, look, let's do some introductions, a little bit further introductions. Brooke, if you don't mind, a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you, John. So as John mentioned, Brooke Perez represent economic development for Georgia Power. I also get to support the Metro North region. And I've had the pleasure of working with Roswell Inc. since 2019. And I was new to economic development. And so when we talk about IEDC and these awards and economic development, what does that even mean, right? What does it mean to the average citizen, to a community member? What does it mean to Georgia Power? So economic development is really that intentional strategic growth, right? Or maybe not growing. Whatever the community may want to be whenever it grows up. But our role at Georgia Power is to support our communities on that journey, to be the absolute best place to live, work, play, run your business, grow your family. Again, it's really up to the community, right, in terms of what they want to do. And so for over 100 years, Georgia Power has had a team dedicated to working all over our state to attract new industry, to help existing industry stay here and grow here, and then help communities prepare for that growth. So for the average citizen, what is economic development? Your amazing public services don't just show up overnight. the fantastic coffee shops and restaurants and Southern Post developments.
That's right.
They don't just appear. That is really thoughtful and intentional effort by so many on the public sector, the private sector, and everything in between. And bringing it back to Roswell, you guys are really unique in terms of how you operate
That's
at the
right.
city level and being a public-private partnership. And so I would say for me, it has been a pleasure to get to work with you all and to know what really innovative, interesting, and successful things have gone on here. We can talk a little bit about those. To me, these awards are just representation of that work being acknowledged by a global audience of your peers and best practices. So now that we've talked about economic development, kind of what that is,
Sure.
Let's talk about IEDC. We throw it around all the time, IEDC. So we'll slow that down.
Yep.
International Economic Development Council.
Yes.
Yep. It is our industry's governing body, if
That's
you
right.
will, body of authority to talk about who we are and what we do.
That's right.
The largest of its kind, 4,500 members strong.
That's right.
And so when we talk about best practices, when we talk about accreditation
Right.
from an organization like IEDC, they are the standard on what is economic development, and the membership represents some of the best practices all over the world.
That's right.
And so we've talked about what is economic development, what is IEDC. So let's talk a little bit about Roswell Inc. and what does that mean to y'all. We're going to get to the award piece, and
Yeah.
that's really important, and we absolutely can't wait to celebrate. But let's talk a little bit about what is Roswell Inc. in the context of economic development, and kind of how did y'all get here today? Because you've been on this journey long before, IEDC accredited you and
Yep.
even is awarding you here in 2025.
Well, I'm excited to have both of you here. Obviously, say that first. Second, I'll say Georgia Power has been a strategic partner in our partnership with the city to create the PPP. The public-private partnership is what a PPP is, right? And Roswell's uniquely positioned, like no other city in the region, with this PPP for economic development. And it came with the need to build business, right? And to try to figure out as a city, where did we want to go? And so a lot of credit goes to the leadership over the years that has stepped up. And most recently, the leadership that has stepped up to support what we're doing from a city side, because the vision has to come from the city. We have to be in alignment with what the city wants and where we're going. And then it gives us our marching orders to get best practices from IEDC of how do we get there? How do we achieve this? How do we support that coffee shop, right? How do we work a project like Southern Post for 8 years and get that to the finish line? Whether it's, connecting the dots to people think, well, is it just bringing, new businesses to town? No, that's actually secondary to creating an environment where we as an organization understand what needs to be here, right? And working so that we have a in-depth knowledge of who owns the property, who needs to be here in that property, helping those property owners get the most value and bang for their buck. But you also have to accomplish the mission of the city. And that has to be clearly understood. And I think that's one of the things we value, especially most recently, is the alignment with the city and where we go to make it a better place. The other thing is we all live here. So that adds a huge value. We're proud of what our community is. And we want to see each and every one of these businesses, because we run Roswell Inc. like they run their businesses, and hopefully you run your home, is we want to be financially sound, but we also want to invest in our community so that we help it grow. So economic development is about the coffee shop. It's about GM Innovation Center. It's about the car dealers on Alpharetta Highway. It's about downtown Canton Street. It's about the shop on the east side that sells lacrosse equipment. It's all those pieces that make up the ecosystem that make the economy grow in Roswell.
Well, and like you said, it's not always about the growth of a city, right? Like a lot of what we've done for a very long time is supporting our current businesses.
That's right.
And one of the great things about IEDC is being able to see what does economic development look like in different communities and of different sizes or different, industry types. And one of the things that has made us unique is, and the fact that we have this public-private partnership structure, is that the city gives us a platform to really give hands-on assistance to current businesses, small businesses, entrepreneurs in a way that most cities aren't able to provide any kind of support for those, smaller business owners. But it's something that's a growing need and has really, we saw at IEDC this year, and I'm sure we'll get into some of the details of what we saw at the conference and the awards, is that entrepreneur-led economic development is
key.
It's key. And a lot of communities are just now trying to figure out how to address that. And that's something we've been doing for almost 15 years already.
I got to jump in here. Working with different communities.
Right.
One of the hardest things we do working with communities in the struggle community is how do you do that when you've got commissioners with budgets that got to be approved or city councils with budgets that got to be approved, different priorities and so forth. How do you see the success of an entrepreneurial business? How do you dedicate the resources as a community, as a city or a community, to make sure they're successful? What does that look like? So many communities struggle with that and sustaining that.
And that's a great piece, because entrepreneurship starts with understanding the business, right?
Yep.
So it really sometimes is difficult for government to understand what your business is and what your business model is. Again, we come from entrepreneurial backgrounds. We put entrepreneurial hats on. We've made payroll on Friday. You'll hear me say that, right?
Yep.
And how important that is. And so then what we do is we leverage relationships. We are not a transactional organization. Had this conversation at lunch today. We're not a chamber. If you want to join the chamber, Greater North Fulton Chamber of Commerce,
Great chamber.
they're our regional entity that we
right.
suggest people go join. We're not transactional. This is long-term relationships. We're building for today, for tomorrow, and for the next 20 years and 25 years and 50 years. And those are the resources we bring to the entrepreneurs that they can't get at City Hall. No offense, right? They're not set up to be that way. Yeah. And they can't get on the private sector because they may not be able to afford it, right? To be able to grow their business. And retention and expansion is our number one focus.
That's right.
With a city with 44 square miles, and 14% of that 44 miles is zone commercial, you've got a very small area to work with to produce. So we got to be strategic about it too. So that's the fun, is we get to work with the entrepreneurs, but the set of issues that the corporate 500, of course, corporate 100 that employ in Roswell, our employers in Roswell, is much different.
Sure.
But we cross both boundaries, and I think that's unique.
Yeah.
Well, and like Steve was saying, I think that a lot of our success is to credit from Steve having a small business here and understanding how to navigate what that's like to be a small
ecosystem.
business owner. And then we've really focused on relationship building and relationship management. I just moved into a new neighborhood about a month ago. And everyone has asked me, have you met Val? Do you know Val? Have you met Val? Because she runs all of the special events. She knows everyone. She's going to get you right settled in the neighborhood, right? And that's who we want to be for businesses, specifically really our small businesses and entrepreneurs who may not have the corporate leverage to gain access to relationships in the way that some of the bigger players in the market can, right? You're a small business owner and you're like, I'm really good at making these cupcakes, but I don't know anybody else. I don't know where the resources are. And so we've grown strong relationships with not only other businesses in the community who can be referral partners for those businesses, but also with the other resources for businesses in the community. Because I think one of the things that some organizations struggle with is like they want to try to do it all. Mm-hmm. They want to try to be the one-stop shop for entrepreneurs. And we know if we're going to meet the needs of all the businesses in the community, we can't be all the things, right? So we grow really strong partnerships with the organizations who can.
Yeah.
We will connect you with SCORE and the
Yep.
Chamber and SBDC and all of our partners and Select Georgia.
SBA.
So that, we can expand our service offerings without having to put too much of a strain on our organization, so we can focus that, on relationship management.
Well, back to knowing your business, you guys know you have a huge population of home-based businesses.
That's right.
I think one of the larger per share of many of the communities across the region.
For sure.
And I regularly point other communities to your small business guide on your website. Because back to your point, you're that resource broker, right?
That's right.
You can't, be that handholder, concierge all the way through the process, but you put that guide out there, you update it every year. And that's, a great resource for that small business person to point to, whether it's they need permitting issues or,
Right.
something else, or they're ready to get out of that home-based business and scale into a location.
Let's find that spot.
What did
right?
Roswell Inc. bring to the table?
That's right.
Resimplify.
That's right.
I can go on and on about the things that y'all have kind of brought into the ecosystem and have
help.
been test beds. John and I always joke there hasn't been a dollar invested in Roswell Inc. that hasn't had ROI, both tangibly and intangibly, in terms of it's been financially beneficial for your community and for the users of the tools, but then it's also been a test bed for something that maybe
Right.
would be interesting to invest and try out and then scale in other parts, other of my economic development partners across the region and the state.
Well, and the fun thing about that is that we understand what some of these businesses go through. They need that resource at 11:30 at night when they just finished a shift, or they're finishing those cupcakes, like Ashley said, because there's a customer picking them up in the morning, but they don't know, they haven't had a chance to look and find out when do they re-permit, and do they need a business license?
Sure.
I've been operating for 10 years,
How
but
do
I
they
didn't
open
realize.
that next location?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. How are they
Right?
going to expand? And I think tools like Resimplify that are on our website are just ways that we can be in their world, right? But we also give them that personalized touch. If they come to us, we're going to help them. We're going to give them an introduction.
That's
There's
right.
nothing better than a warm introduction to an SBA guy or to a banker. I tell this people all the time. I said, they'll say, "Hey, do you know a banker?" I said, "What kind of banker do you need?" Let's start with that, right?
Right.
Because everybody's scared of the banker. Well, let's get you to the right banker, right? Let's connect you so you can grow. And if it just helps them from going into their bank that they've been banking with, that they don't have a relationship, if we can open doors, whether it's there or with permitting or any of the other variety of things that they need to run their business, we're just a valuable asset, right? We're somebody they can depend on. Well, we're not asking them for money, right? Which is a unique scenario.
Sure.
Which if I can, which is interesting because your investment by your investors has increased significantly
That's right.
since 2019 with the
Considerable.
philosophy of not targeting the investment,
That's right.
but rather than serving, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mindset is let us serve you first. Let us find the best way for you. If there's an opportunity to invest, we may ask you, but it's got to be a good relationship on both sides, right?
You know what that is? That's good business.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Well, back to sort of John and I being lucky enough to be on the inside, right? And being investors and being strategic partners and understanding the ecosystem of economic development, it's a no-brainer, right? But these awards speak volumes to the whole world, right? To the
Right.
region, to the state. So I'd love to talk about those a little bit. Now that we've
Sure.
talked about what is economic development, how did y'all get here? No doubt we've talked about your website and the resources, we've the self-help tools, even the way that you talk about each customer is clearly indicative of how you showed up in this award process and why you've been acknowledged for not 1 or 2 or 3, but 4 IEDC awards a year
This year.
this year. So, what does that mean? I think we've all sort of seen headlines on different awards and wondered, okay, well, how hard was it to get that, right? Or the criteria must not have been that challenging. But this is a very rigorous process.
Yes, it is.
And I would put it right up there with what the state of Georgia goes through every year with area development. and how we compete to continue to be the number one state to do business.
That's right.
Which congratulations to everyone in economic development.
Yes, win for Georgia.
And Roswell Inc. is certainly a feather in that cap, right? Because one of the big criteria is how great is it to do business across collaboration and partnership. So that's a big team win. We certainly understand what that's like to be the number one utility in economic development for 27 years running. It is a very similar, rigorous process. And so IEDC is no different. You have to be have very strong financial record and investment. You have to have a strong strategic plan that talks about not only what you're doing today, but what does the future look like,
That's right.
ROI and feedback.
Yep.
And then really you're being judged by a jury, again, of national peers.
Yeah.
And you're standing up against national organizations of all shapes and sizes. And so you showed up as an organization winning a bronze award
Last
for
year.
Economic Development Organization of the Year.
Right.
The first time in the state of Georgia.
It's big.
So that's huge and just continues to bolster all the good things about our state. So thank you for being a crown jewel in that space.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely. And then, as we talk about communities that are more developed, so a redevelopment award for Southern Post, which you already mentioned was 10 years in the making. And sometimes, that's really complicated in economic development. It is not an overnight thing.
No.
It is not a one election cycle thing. And so back to leadership. And that's what we preach all the time at Georgia Power. It's at the bottom of our pyramid for how we teach and lead economic development. And you guys are exemplary in that because sometimes this stuff takes a very long, painful, unpopular seasons to get through. And then, of course, a gold for your impact award, right? So for the impact you're having for all of the constituents you already talked about, citizens have no idea the role y'all have played in the amenities that are here, right? Which are funded by all of the business and industry that feed into that tax digest, right?
That's exactly right.
So I want you to speak a little bit more about that. And then finally, silver for this podcast.
Right?
Yeah. Which John and I are loving flipping the script on, getting to interview y'all on your own podcast to really, celebrate y'all and help you toot your own horn and tell your own story. So tell us a little bit more about each award, what it means to y'all, and Ashley, you've specifically spoken about how y'all are excited, but how this also raises the bar for y'all. You're not just going to be happy with these awards. So tell us some more.
Yeah. Well, I'll speak a little bit to the process, and then I'll let Steve kind of speak to each of the awards and kind of what that means and where it kind of drives us. So we started submitting award applications the year after we became accredited, which was just in 2021. So it's only been about 3 years that we've been submitting.
Let's throw that in. Accreditation, right? Through IEDC.
Start there.
Let's start there. Thanks to Brooke being instrumental. We started this process in COVID and finished up in 2021. And reality is we're one of, right now, 90 accredited organizations.
And only 3 in the state of Georgia.
3 in the state of Georgia. Which means a lot because of the rigorous role we have to go through to show that we are fully accredited, and the audit that we go through, and it reinforces best practices, and every 3 years we go for reaccreditation to be even better. Right?
So we were just reaccredited.
Yes, congratulations.
But no, like Steve said, so we became accredited in 2021 and really dove into IEDC and recognizing that accreditation challenged us to raise the bar. That while we got accredited, they had some great feedback on how we could really improve and different kind of ways we could innovate within our organization. And so we applied to some awards that first year, got nothing. So in the second year, I was like, I'm going to be a judge. I'm going to figure out what is this like?
Yeah,
what
in your
is
spare
this
time.
process like? Yeah,
in our spare time.
Added that onto my list of things to do. So we submitted awards again. I think it was last year. And I was a judge for the first time, and I got done, and I was like, I don't know if we're going to win anything. That was intense.
Yeah,
very intense.
Yeah.
So just to give some kind of idea of what the award awarding is like. It is not a first, second, third place. In each category, you can give every award, you can give 0 awards. And that particular year, I was with a group of very cutthroat economic developers, and there were entire
competitive
categories.
group.
It's very
It was.
competitive.
There were entire categories that got no award because they didn't feel that anything was innovative enough, that it didn't really
Didn't make
meet
the
this
mark.
high standard. It wasn't like a who was best that year. It really is this something we've never seen before? Is this something that is award worthy, not going to get an award by default? And it was very data driven. So that's when I started getting nervous and I was like, oh, I had a few stats, but I don't know that I had enough. So we did win 1 award last year.
Yep. Very proud of
Which
it.
was for our video campaign, our 2025 video campaign. But there were a couple that we didn't win. But this year I was like, I know
We're gonna change
I know how to
this up.
show up for our award applications. So, and I was a judge again this year because it's very inspiring seeing everything that's submitted, right? Like it really inspires you when you see what won awards, but it also inspires you when you get to sit on a 3-hour call with 13 other judges and look at 40 applications and really like deep dive into each of these, various projects and initiatives and campaigns. And I got out of that call and I was like, oh, they changed it again this year. Oh. They reduced the number of awards that could be given by half.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, oh no, we're in the the most popular community
group.
size.
25,000 to 100. No, 200,000.
So that's
population.
the community size that
So
we're
that's
competing
who we're
in,
up
which is
against.
like
Yeah.
every community in America except for major metros, right? So I started getting a little nervous. And then by surprise, we won 4 awards. And Economic Development Organization of the Year, I will tell you,
Was a surprise.
we decided to apply to that to get feedback to figure out how to win that award. Had no idea that we would actually walk away with the
award.
first award ever for the state of Georgia. So
And the beauty of this is when we talk about it, it's not to get these beautiful awards, right? It's so that we got the feedback. So now we've got the feedback on every award. What makes us better? What are some of the key things? And that's why we participate in IEDC, is so that we can go out and actually see other organizations, how they're doing it. Are they going to look like us? Not always, but they're going to be similar, right?
But sometimes that's a good thing, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
sometimes we get the
We need to
most
see.
inspiring techniques and ideas from rural communities
Right.
or
That's
a big
right.
major metro that is more akin
Innovative.
to Atlanta than it is to Roswell. But we see an idea that we think, oh, we could apply that to Roswell and that could really make a difference. So yeah, it's very much about challenging our organization to be the best, not necessarily the outcome of getting an award.
And I can speak firsthand from the accreditation process,
Yes.
having helped with your strategic plan on multiple
Yes.
occasions. That is not a check the box.
No.
And you are going to look all over the country. And we've all been a part of, delegations. And that is absolutely true. You can go somewhere that may feel completely opposite of you. And you might learn one thing. It might be a finance mechanism.
That's right.
Right? You just never know what little nugget. And I have watched y'all get that feedback from the accreditation process, from the update. And I can't wait to see the feedback from these awards.
It's amazing.
To see, y'all adopt it. You bring it in and you say, based on who we are and what we do, how can we leverage this or how can we share it?
Right.
Right? You all are a part of a region. We talked about the North Fulton region.
Yep.
And the other thing that's beautiful is y'all don't just put all of these things in a little Roswell only box, right?
Right.
You share across the region, across our own statewide organization, GEDA, and others, because a high tide lifts all boats.
Well,
and that's just it's how y'all operate. And
Yeah,
it says a lot, I think, about probably how you ended up here.
And these awards, they're great, right? It's reaffirming of what we're doing. But the key here is it only gets better for the community that we live in Roswell, the region, right, and the state. And how do we all fit in? Because at the end of the day, just like you said, high tides rise all boats. We are in that position as a key leader in this region to help grow what is already here and just make it even better. And so the more we can learn from outside to bring in, the more we can learn about, and not forgetting who our customer is, right?
Sure.
That's so key. And that's very valuable. We're just really proud of the opportunity to be able to share with the community and take the limelight for a few days, but know that our noses are already down to the and hitting the ground running for how do we get better each and every day for next year and the next year.
All right, we're getting the signal here.
All
So I guess we
right.
got to wrap up the conversation.
We could do this all day, you know.
I would agree. I'm ready to sponsor a couple of chairs for us.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we could be co-hosts.
We can talk about that after.
Always.
Yeah.
You're always welcome.
No. Well, I do want to say this. Just as a member of our board, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank
for the hard work of you, Morgan, Brooke, everybody, the whole team it
Thank
takes to earn these awards. Thank you. And it's our honor to celebrate it with you. I would be remiss also as my teammate. I'm going to take off my Georgia hat for a second and keep on the Roswell Inc. hat and just say thank you for your investment. It was well laid before I got here. You've been a tried and true partner and investor of this organization. And appreciate all your contribution and just who you are to this organization.
Takes a village.
Yeah.
It does.
Well, thank
does.
you. You know, it's a privilege to get to do this work on behalf of Georgia Power. I know you and I both feel very deeply about that. And truly, you know, just to sit alongside, maybe ask a few questions, maybe add a little value. I take all y'all's good ideas to all my other communities.
Bring it on.
And it's just been an absolute pleasure from day one. So thank you.
Well, thank you all for doing this today. Thank you again for your support because, again, if we all work together, we're all going to make a difference. So, as we always say, it's a great day to do business in Roswell. Cheers.
Here.
Sure, yeah.
Cheers.
Close on that.